Hey there, welcome back to my kitchen. If you're new around here, my name is Mel and I love to share cooking videos on this channel. Today we are going to be making 4 pork chop recipes. I haven't shared a pork chop video in quite some time, so I hope you enjoy today's recipes, but let's go ahead and get started. We're starting off with this pork chop and stuffing recipe. This is so easy to make and I think you'll really like it. So to begin, I went ahead and just preheated my oven to 375 degrees. And now over onto my cutting board, I have 4 pork chops here. For this entire video, I used 1 whole pork loin and I cut that into pork chops for 4 recipes. And that pork loin only cost me about $8, so that's a great inexpensive protein there. They were on the thinner side just a little bit, but honestly, these recipes are so filling, I didn't really have to worry about that too much. To season these pork chops, I am just sprinkling them lightly with a little bit of salt, pepper, and cornstarch, and I'm just going to take my hand and really rub that cornstarch into the pork chops, and then you will just flip them over and repeat the same seasonings on the opposite side. Moving over to my cutting board, I have about half of a yellow onion here that I am chopping up pretty fine, along with about a half cup of celery. My celery was frozen in the freezer, so that's why it looks a little funny here, but you'll just need about a half cup of that, and I'm chopping that up super fine as well. I am using a cast iron skillet today just to make this easier so I can transfer it right into the oven. I added about a tablespoon of butter and a little bit of olive oil in there, and now I'm just going to basically brown up the sides of these pork chops. You do not need to worry about cooking them through right now. I have these on a high heat and I'm going to let them cook for about a minute or so, just until they get a little bit of brown on them. As you can see in the back there, I did go ahead and cook up 2 boxes of stuffing. I will show you a picture of the stuffing here. Just follow the box directions for those and let them sit back there until you're ready to use them. Now that the pork chops are all browned up, I am just going to continue using this pan and cook the onion and the celery in here. I did go ahead and season up the onion and celery with about a half teaspoon of garlic powder, a half teaspoon of sage, and a half teaspoon of thyme. Give that a good mix together, and then you're just going to let this cook on your stove for about 5 to 10 minutes until the onion and celery are nice and tender. Give that a good mix together and make sure it's even in the pan, and then you're going to take your pork chops and add those right on top. Don't forget to add any juices that are on the plate as well. You don't want to miss out on that added flavor. And then over top of the pork chops, you're just going to add a pat of butter, and then this is going into the oven to bake for about 15 to 20 minutes. It might take a little longer if your pork chops are thicker than mine. Just make sure that the pork chops hit 145 degrees. Once they were done, I just went ahead and garnished them with a little bit of parsley and then served them up, and I actually made some homemade rolls on this night with some cinnamon butter and a little bit of carrots to go along the side, but this meal was actually very filling. That stuffing will definitely fill you up quick. I just feel like this is one of those meals that feels really homemade but was actually really easy to make and quick, and I think everybody will be able to enjoy this one. Next up, per my husband's request, we are making our favorite $1 million pork chops. I went ahead and just preheated my oven to 375 degrees. And now over to my cutting board, I have 5 pork chops here. I am just lightly seasoning these with some onion powder, garlic powder, salt, and pepper on both sides. There's really no need to measure, just make sure they're seasoned nicely. Next, into my large cast iron skillet, I am going to go ahead and start some bacon. In total, you'll want to make about 6 to 8 slices of bacon. I like to cut my bacon in half to cook it just because I feel like it cooks a lot easier if it's in the pan, a lot easier. But in total, you will need 6 to 8 whole slices. When the bacon was done, I did just remove it out of the pan to a paper towel for right now, and into this same skillet, if there is too much grease, just drain some of it off. You're going to keep a little bit of the bacon grease and add your pork chops in here to cook. Just like the last recipe, we are just browning the sides, not cooking all the way through. Now to make the topping, I am adding half a block of softened cream cheese into my bowl, along with 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. Half a cup of shredded cheese, I like to use mild cheddar, and then you're also going to chop up 3 green onions and that bacon. You'll add some of that in here, but reserve a little bit of both of those to go on top later. I went ahead and just gave that a good mix together and then moved back over to my pork chops. As you can see, they have browned nicely. This was about a minute or so. I'm going to flip them over, let them sit for about 30 seconds, and then add the topping on there. Just split that topping between your 5 pork chops. This actually is enough filling to where you could probably make about 7 of these pork chops and just put a little less filling on top of each one. But today, since I only have 5, we're just splitting it between these 5. Over top of that, you're going to add some more of that mild shredded cheddar cheese. Now these are going into the oven to bake for about 15 to 20 minutes until they're cooked all the way through to at least 145 degrees. If you are using thicker pork chops, this may take just a few minutes longer, so make sure you are temping them. Once they are out of the oven, you can go ahead and take the rest of the bacon and the rest of the green onions and add that to the tops. If you've been around here for a long time, I'm sure you've probably seen this recipe pop up on my channel before, but like I said, it is one of our favorites. And on the side with this one, I usually serve it with some type of macaroni and cheese and broccoli. They just all go so good together, and we really enjoy this one. So definitely, if you haven't tried this one, please do. It is so good. Shake and bake used to be something that I had a lot as a kid, so today we are making a homemade version of that. I am just starting by preheating my oven to 400 degrees today. And now over onto my cutting board, I have 5 thinner pork chops, but like I said, you can use thicker ones as well. Into this bag, I added 1 cup of regular breadcrumbs, 1 teaspoon of salt, a little over a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of basil, 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1/2 teaspoon of parsley, and a couple shakes of cayenne pepper. About 1 teaspoon of sugar and 2 tablespoons of avocado oil. Now I'm just going to go ahead and mix this together in this bag. I do want to let you know this is not my recipe. I did follow another recipe for this. However, I kind of changed some of the measurements a little bit just because I felt like I didn't need quite as much of a breading mixture. But I will link the recipe down below so you can follow that one if you'd like. Here's what it should look like once it's all mixed together. Now you can start adding in your pork chops. I like to do one at a time just because it makes it a lot easier and you can really make sure each one gets covered well. Just give it a good shake in there, and then once you pull it out, it should be nicely covered just like this. You'll just want to repeat that until you get all of your pork chops covered. I did have a little bit left over in here. I probably could have done at least one more pork chop in here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add these over onto a baking sheet. I did line it with a little bit of parchment paper just so they wouldn't stick to my pan. And now since I had so much of that breading left over, I am just going to take a little bit of it and sprinkle it on the tops of each one. I stuck these in the oven and they baked for right around 15 minutes until they were reaching about 145 degrees. I usually aim for 145 to 155, somewhere in there. That's perfect for us. Here's what they look like when they were all done. They were nicely browned. And I actually just served these with some sides that I shared in a recent video, so I will link that down below for you. I made these smashed potatoes and this yummy quinoa salad that I ate on for days. But both of these paired really nicely with these pork chops, and these pork chops were so easy to make. And now last but not least, we're making these slow cooker pork chops and rice. The lighting on this one is not great, I do apologize. But to begin, we're just going to go ahead and spray down the crock pot with a little bit of nonstick spray. And now I'm adding in my pork chops. This is what was left of my pork loin at this point. I had 5 smaller pork chops. But I definitely think this recipe would be better if you had bigger pork chops, that way there was more meat in the recipe. Then I added in 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, 2 cups of beef broth, 3/4 of a cup of water, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, about half a teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of dried onion flakes. I'm just going to take a spoon and break up that cream of mushroom soup. And then you're also going to add in 1 stick of butter that you cubed up. I know this is a lot of butter, but it's what the recipe calls for. I added the lid on and let this cook on a low heat for about 6 hours. At the 5-hour mark, I probably could have went ahead and started the end of this recipe, but we went ahead and let it cook for 6 hours. At this point, my pork chops are literally falling apart with a touch of a fork, so now we're just going to take those out and shred them up all the way. Once shredded, you can go ahead and just add those back into the crock pot, and now you're going to add about 2 cups of minute rice. Give that a really good mix together to combine the pork chops, the rice, and all the juices, and let this cook for about another hour on high until the rice is soft and there is no more liquid in the crock pot. At this point, you can go ahead and add in your cheese. You can add anywhere from 1 to 2 cups of cheese in here. Give it a good mix together, let it melt for a few minutes, and then this is ready to go. And then when it's done, I like to serve it with extra cheese over the top. It doesn't look like the most delicious meal ever. It looks kind of like oatmeal, honestly. However, it is so good. Me and my husband love this meal. I just went ahead and served it with some mashed potatoes and some Italian-style green beans. Thank you guys so much for watching today. If you're new here, I hope you do subscribe and stick around. If you made it all the way to the end of today's video, don't forget to leave me a flower down in the comments below just to let me know that you did, and I will see you back here next time. Bye!